Hello friends, I am glad to see you again. Today I'll talk about the HOA, which tells me to schedule my move. At exactly 7:12 a.m. on a Wednesday, I opened my front door to the kind of paper you only ever see in movies about foreclosures. Thick, officious, taped at eye level, and printed in all caps like someone expected the font to do the shoving. It wasn't from a court. It wasn't from the county. It was from something calling itself the Lakeside Preserve Homeowners Association. Even though I do not live in anything called Lakeside, nor do I have a preserve. I have one scrappy elm the previous owner begged me not to cut down because the birds liked it, and a driveway that leans to the left like a tired shoulder. Immediate action required, the notice boomed. Pursuant to declaration and supplemental bylaw update recorded last month, your household is now subject to the association. Failure to remit initiation dues and membership forms within 48 hours will result in proceedings to remove you as a non-compliant occupant. You are hereby directed to schedule your move out no later than Friday at 4 p.m. so that the association may prevent further community disruption. I put my coffee down and read it again, slower. Somewhere around the third line, my eyebrows went up so far I could feel the morning air on my forehead. I'd bought this place precisely because it wasn't in an HOA. That was a big checkbox. My realtor, well-meaning, chatty, had joked that I'd be free to paint the house a responsible color like grown-up blue or an irresponsible one like toaster oven orange, and no one could find me for a yard flamingo or decide my trash bins offended their sensibilities. Across the street, my neighbor, a retired plumber named Brooks who fixed things in exchange for pies, ambled out to retrieve his paper. I waved the notice and said I'd give him any pie he wanted if he knew what on earth this meant. He squinted, shook out his paper, and said, "You got one too?" Then he lifted his copy. The exact same letter stared back at me, except his had a handwritten note that said, "Mr. Brooks, your gutters are out of compliance. You'll be fined daily." I read that, and that's when something tightened under my collarbone. None of this smelled right. It smelled like someone had left a stack of fake badges in a dress-up bin and expected us to salute. There are two things you should know about me. First, I'm not brave by nature. I'm practical. Second, I've spent half my life in jobs where paper matters, contracts, title searches, county plats, warranty deeds. I'm not a lawyer, but I know the difference between the paper that actually moves the world and the kind that only cosplays as authority. This was theater. The signature at the bottom, Marla, acting president. No last name. A P.O. box. A phone number that looked locally plausible. And a line that made me laugh out loud despite myself. By returning the attached enrollment and initiation fee, you consent to the association's jurisdiction and agree to vacate property if directed. That was followed by a move-out scheduling form. I could pick morning, afternoon, or will be out by nightfall. My favorite part was the little checkbox for will you need assistance securing pets? Brooks leaned in and said, "They came by last night." Woman in a blazer with a clipboard. Tall guy with a ponytail took photos of my downspout like it had insulted his family. "Did you sign anything?" I asked. "Goodness, no. I told them to come back when they learned basic manners." The tall one told me this was already recorded with the county and that refusing would make it worse. "Recorded what?" I said, although I already had a hunch. "Them taking us over," Brooks said. He rubbed the edge of the paper like it might smear. "Can they do that? Are we annexable?" The word annexable hung in the morning air like a bird trying out a new wing beat. In some places, communities can form an HOA and try to bring neighboring parcels into a district if the covenants and deed restrictions allow for it and certain consent thresholds are met. It's not as simple as printing a letter. You can't bind strangers by whisper. You can't evict people with stationery. But nastier versions of this trick traveled around the country in the same way diet fads do. Someone tried it, bragged about it, and a dozen others thought they'd found a hack. A rogue HOA claims they can impose rules on nearby lots. Most of the time, the bluff works on the timid. Everyone else fights. I didn't yet know which kind of neighbor I'd be. I did know the first thing to do was breathe, take pictures of the notice, and then read my deed so closely I could hum it. The deed to my property doesn't include any covenants, conditions, or restrictions about future association membership. There's a reason I paid a little extra for a title policy that blared that fact in bold. The only restrictions are the usual ones, the ones about not using the property as a pig farm or a parking lot for 18-wheelers. Nothing about joining a club with a whiteboard and a taste for power. Before I went back inside, my other neighbor, a nurse named Inez who ran on pure caffeine and sarcasm, shouted from her porch, "They told me my porch light violates dark skies policy and I have to put in one of their approved fixtures. Also, isn't it weird that we're now supposedly in a community called Lakeside when the closest thing to a lake is Mr. Drew's above-ground pool?" Inez walked over with her letter and dog and pointed out the sentence that made her blood pressure spike. "Immediate membership required. The association reserves the right to initiate summary removal, eviction, in the event of non-compliance." She tapped it with a fingernail. "They used the word eviction like it's a seasoning." "Eviction isn't a seasoning," I said. "It's a recipe with exact steps." Inez's dog licked my knuckles like he agreed. By 7:45, the little cluster of houses on our block had formed what I can only describe as a stoop conference. Everyone had a letter. Everyone had an opinion. Folks who'd never met were suddenly nodding as if we shared a group chat and a family reunion and a shared kidney. Sometimes a threat is just a magnet that forces strangers into the same polarity. A young mom named Faith was trembling in that way people do when fear has to coexist with errands. "They told me I was already late on my first quarterly dues," she said, showing me a second page of the notice stapled to the first like an afterthought. "It says I owe $75 and that late fees begin tomorrow. Did you pay?" Brooks asked gently. She shook her head. "I almost did. It said to leave cash in the drop box near the community pool." She laughed a little at that. "We don't have a community pool." That's when the tall guy with the ponytail walked into our conversation like he was in charge of time. "Okay, folks," he said in a voice you reserve for toddlers and pigeons. "I see you've all gotten your notices. We'll be back at lunchtime for your completed membership packets. Don't leave them on the ground. We've installed a neighborhood collection kiosk at the corner." "We?" I asked. "The association," he said. "And you are?" "Clive," he said, as if just his first name were enough credentials to manage a micro-city. He handed me a glossy trifold that featured a stock photo family high-fiving under a maple and said, "Everything's in there. Keep your questions till we've onboarded everyone." Marla followed him at a clip. She was the one in the blazer, neat hair, calm eyes that looked like they made a habit of not blinking. "We're not the enemy," she said softly to us all. "We're neighbors. We're here to make sure our blocks meet standards. The majority of your area approved the supplemental declaration." "What majority?" I asked, steady. She tilted her head. "That's board business. We'll talk later." Then she turned to Faith and said, "I know change is hard, sweetie, but you'll be glad. We're making things nicer." Inez stepped forward. "Did you just call her sweetie?" Her voice was low and precise. "You're standing on our sidewalks telling us you can evict us like you're ordering lunch. Don't call people pet names while you threaten their housing." Marla's mouth thinned. "No one's threatening anything. We just need compliance. What are you going to do when you don't get it?" I asked. She didn't answer with words. She pointed at the move-out scheduling form, then walked away. It took me exactly 2 minutes after they left to go inside, put on jeans and a t-shirt, and get serious. There's a way to do righteous rage, and there's a way to do effective resistance. I wanted the latter. The thing about living in this country is that whatever else is breaking, our paper systems still mostly run as intended, provided you speak their syntax and show up. I dug up my closing documents, the title insurance policy, and the plat map. Then I did the thing every electronically literate adult should know how to do. I checked the county recorder's index. The recorders and clerks are the public's memory. If anything exists as an official claim against your property, it walks through their doors, sits at their desks, and leaves a paper trail. The search took 5 minutes. I typed my parcel number, then my street, then my name, then random keywords like lakeside and preserve, because if there was a trick here, it might be hiding in the commas. And there it was, 4 weeks old, recorded at 4:11 p.m. on a Friday. Supplemental Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions for the Lakeside Preserve Homeowners Association, purporting to expand the territorial jurisdiction to include adjacent parcels meeting the contiguity and compatibility standards as described in Exhibit B. I scrolled to Exhibit B and laughed so loud I scared myself. They had included a fuzzy photocopy of a map with a highlighter-drawn circle that covered not just our block, but another street. Then a triangle into what used to be an orchard. Names Marla signed as acting president. Another name I didn't recognize. Breck, secretary. Then a notary acknowledgement. My eyes kept moving. The nut of it was that they declared by themselves that they'd absorbed us, like some neighborhood Borg. But the more dangerous part was that the county had accepted it for recording, because counties have ministerial duties. They record what people present when it meets the basic formatting requirements. Recording does not mean approval. It does not grant validity to garbage. But paper in a county book casts a long shadow. If they could point to the book and say, "See," then the average person might sigh and pay. I printed the declaration, printed my deed, printed the plat, printed the case law I remembered reading during a late-night rabbit hole, that in most states, an HOA can't unilaterally expand to cover properties whose deeds don't reference the covenants, and that any annexation requires the express written consent of record owners. There are always exceptions, but they're narrow. You don't treat your neighbors like you're harvesting new vegetables from the store next door. There was also the important matter of due process. Evictions are creatures of court. If someone doesn't pay rent or violates a lease, the landlord has to file specific paperwork. If someone violates a covenant and the documents permit certain remedies, those run through courts too. You can't just point to a house and say, "Out." That's called illegal lockout, wrongful eviction, and about 6 different flavors of "you're going to be embarrassed on local news." I called the number on the notice. It went to a voicemail that said, "You've reached the association. Leave a message if you're ready to comply." I hung up. Then I called a friend, Maya, who is in fact a lawyer, the kind of lawyer who delights in footnotes. I texted her a picture of the notice and typed, "You ever see cosplay this bold?" She called me back before the typing bubbles finished doing their dance. "Okay," she said without preamble. "You are absolutely not in their HOA. Don't pay a dime. Don't sign anything. Screenshot everything. And please, for the love of all things statutory, do not get into a shouting match at the corner kiosk." I was more of a photograph the kiosk and quote the Open Meetings Act to anyone who gets within 4 feet of my toes kind of person, I said. But duly noted. She asked me to send the recorded declaration. I did. Then she whistled under her breath. "They recorded a supplemental declaration without your consent. That's slander of title if it clouds your property. Also, possibly fraudulent notary if they fudged anything. And if they try to collect dues or, Lord help them, threaten eviction, they're flirting with unfair and deceptive practices. Do you want me to write a letter that sounds like it's wearing heavy boots?" "Yes," I said. "But I also want to play this a little. They directed me to schedule my move out. I have a mildly wicked idea." "Tell me you're not going to stage a theatrical tableau," she said, but I could hear the smile. "Sort of," I said. "I'm going to schedule a move-out inspection at their clubhouse." "We don't have a clubhouse," she said, catching on. "Exactly," I said. "But they say we do, and they say I have to schedule a move-out. I'll comply in the most literal form possible, then make them explain on camera how they're evicting someone from a property they have no authority over, and directing them to a facility that exists only in their brochures." Maya paused. The sound lawyers make when they weigh humor against strategy. "As long as you also file something real. We can ask a judge for a quick temporary restraining order to keep them from making mischief while we sort this out. And I'd like you to send them a certified letter today, a calm one, the kind that says, 'We see you. Stop. Done,'" I said. By noon, 3 things had happened. First, Inez and Brooks reported the kiosk at the corner was a repurposed mailbox bolted to a stake and labeled "Association Correspondence Only." Second, a teenage boy on a scooter told us he'd been paid $20 to do compliance patrols and photograph infractions, which mainly consisted of "your grass is too long" and "your truck is parked in front of your house." Third, an envelope appeared in my mailbox with a pre-filled eviction notice, created on a word processor and stuffed with language that sounded like it had been stolen from 5 different state statutes. It said I had 3 days to quit the premises, a phrase that is technically a thing in some jurisdictions, but again requires a relationship such as landlord-tenant. It included a half-baked threat to seek assistance from local sheriff. It included a move-out checklist. The checklist had gems: patch holes in walls, return all community-issued keys, remove all furniture not in compliance with architectural rules, ensure no personal belongings remain. At the bottom, in smaller font, failure to schedule will result in immediate entry by the association to remove possessions to the curb. That last line moved this from dramatic to dangerous. Someone willing to put hands on your stuff when you've told them to go away is the kind of person you have to stop with actual court orders and a paper shield you can wave when the deputies arrive. I typed my certified letter. I kept it clean. I wrote, To Acting President Marla and the Board. Cease and desist. Fraudulent declaration. Unlawful threats. I am the record owner of address. My deed contains no reference to your association's covenants, and I have never consented to be subject to them. Your recorded supplemental declaration is void and has no effect on my property. Your notices demanding immediate membership, dues, and eviction are unlawful and constitute slander of title, unfair and deceptive practices, and threats of illegal lockout. Any attempt to enter my property without a court order will be treated as trespass and reported. You are additionally instructed to preserve all documents and communications related to these actions. You will receive formal correspondence from my counsel. Govern yourselves accordingly. Then I took it to the post office and mailed it because sometimes stamps are armor. When I got back, a woman I'd never seen stood in my driveway with a clipboard and a body language that said she'd prefer to be anywhere else. She wore a badge that said compliance. I stepped out of my car and said, "Can I help you?" She glanced at the house number, checked her paper, and said, "I'm here to schedule your move out." "Great," I said brightly. "I'll need the official list of abandoned property remedies from your legal counsel, a copy of the authority you think you have over my parcel, a copy of the court order you think permits any kind of eviction, and the handbook for your so-called clubhouse where you expect me to do the inspection." She blinked. "We don't provide documents. I don't provide my living room to fake sheriffs," I said. "But since you're here," I pulled the move-out scheduling form from my pocket where I'd folded it into something that looked official. I'd checked the box for morning and filled in a date 3 years in the future. Under location, I'd written Association Clubhouse. Then, for good measure, 123 Imaginary Way. Under special instructions, I'd put, "Bring your notary and a camera. I will bring my lawyer and 6 friends and a muffin basket." She didn't laugh. I didn't expect her to. She took the paper and looked like someone had handed her a coupon to a closed store. "We can't meet at the clubhouse," she said, and then caught herself, adding hastily, "It's under renovation." "Ah," I said, "renovation. Does that renovation include building it?" "I'm just here to schedule," she said. She shifted foot to foot. "If you don't schedule, they'll start the process. Please tell they that if they step foot on my porch, I will ask them to leave. And if they don't, I will call the sheriff. And if the sheriff thinks this is funny, I will call the county attorney." I kept my voice even. "Also, please tell your boss my lawyer will be filing for a restraining order tomorrow morning." She left, which I counted as progress. That evening, we had a block meeting in Inez's garage. Folding chairs, lemonade, a plate of cookies that vanished the way good intentions do. We also had a guest, an older man named Mr. Delaney who lived 2 streets over. Eyes the color of old pennies, hands that looked like they'd built things. He'd gotten a similar notice last week, ignored it, and came home to find a bright orange notice of violation on his door with a threatened fine of $50 per day for his non-approved tool shed. "I built that shed in '89, he said. "It's not hurting anybody. I'm on a fixed income. If they fine me, I can't pay." "You don't have to," I said, more firmly than I felt, but determined to make the words true through volume. "They have no authority over you. None." He stared at the concrete floor like it might offer him a verdict. "They had a security person come by and tell me they'll put a lien on my house." "Only a judgment can be a lien in this state," Maya said as she stepped into the garage. She'd come straight from her office. She had that rumpled look of someone who outruns the clock and wins. She took off her jacket and draped it over the back of a chair and said to the group, "I'm Maya. I like paper and rules and messing with bullies. I'm helping your neighbor. If you want, I'll share what we're going to do, and you can decide if you want to join." She broke it down. The recorded supplemental declaration was likely void. We could seek a declaratory judgment saying so. In the meantime, we could ask for a temporary restraining order to stop them from taking enforcement actions against any house the declaration claimed to annex. We'd file a complaint for slander of title, unfair practices, trespass, and maybe even attempt to practice law without a license if they kept threatening evictions. The mere mention of the word eviction by a body that had no landlord relationship was, in our state, a scent that made judges pay attention. "Also," she said, "I filed a complaint with the state's Consumer Protection Division and the Licensing Board for property managers. If that tall guy is operating as a community manager without a license, they'll be interested. If the notary on this mess didn't confirm identities properly, that's another problem. And if any of you are willing, I'd like to get sworn statements about the threats." People nodded, fierce and tired. Sometimes that's all a neighborhood is, a chorus of nods in a room that smells like motor oil. And then there's the news, I offered. People love stories about overreach and made-up rules. If these folks truly believe they can yank strangers into their group and evict them for daring to own their own homes, maybe they'd like a spotlight. Keep that as a tool, Maya said. Sometimes public pressure resolves what prying with statutes won't. But let's front-load the paper. After the meeting, as we were stacking chairs, Brooks said, "So what's your wicked idea?" "I scheduled a move-out," I said, "at their clubhouse." He laughed so hard he had to sit down. "Will there be snacks?" "Absolutely," I said, "and a banner and a sign-in sheet. And I'll bring the county plat map in a frame. If they want theater, they can have theater." That night, as I brushed my teeth, my phone pinged with a voicemail from an unknown number. I hit play. Marla's voice, unmistakable, even more controlled when recorded. "We received your schedule," she said, and there was a layer of amusement that annoyed me more than an insult. "This is not a joke, neighbor. Failure to comply will result in removal. You have been advised." I saved the message, emailed it to myself, and put the file in a folder called Lakeside Evidence. Then I did the thing adults do when something absurd tries to steal their peace. I made tea. I sat by the window. I watched the elm move in the dark, a silent witness. Then I wrote down everything I remembered about the past 48 hours, including the exact words, because memory bends and paper doesn't. The next morning, a white SUV with magnetic logos idled at the corner where the kiosk stood. A man I didn't recognize loaded what looked like envelopes from the mailbox into a tote. I walked over with Brooks and Inez, practicing the most polite version of, "You can't do that." The man smiled the way people smile when they think a camera is on them. Then he said, "We're collecting memberships." "Public property?" I asked, nodding at the sidewalk. "Association property," he said. "In which county plat book?" I asked, pleasant as lemonade. He stared. "You people sure ask a lot of questions for non-compliant residents." "Questions are free," I said. "Trespassing is not." I took a picture of the tote, then of the mailbox, then of his SUV plate. He got in the car and drove away fast enough to make the mailbox wobble. Inside the tote, because he hadn't closed it properly, I saw cash, bills, crumpled, with paper clips. My stomach went cold. They were going to get someone. Someone like Faith, who has toddlers and too much on her mind and not enough budget, to feed them a mistake. If the worst thing these folks did was bully us with paper, that would be grim enough. If they took money through intimidation, that was a different category. I called Maya. "They're collecting dues in a tote from a mailbox on public ground," I said. "Cash. I'm calling the consumer division again," she said. "And the city. If that box doesn't have a permit, it's gone by dinner." At noon, because apparently these people liked schedules, a new thing happened. A process server knocked on my door. He wasn't with the association. He was with a local firm I actually recognized from real cases. He held out a manila envelope and said in a voice practiced for TV, "You've been served." I signed for it because if there's one thing I'll never do, it's play hide and seek with process. I opened the envelope and read the caption. My name, the association's name, the prayer for relief. They were suing me for declaratory judgment confirming applicability of covenants, breach of association rules, and, unbelievably, unlawful occupation. They asked the court to order me to vacate the property until I complied by joining and paying. They had stapled their supplemental declaration to the complaint. They had also stapled a printout of my Facebook post about my elm, as if appreciating a tree made me subject to their landscape guidelines. Maya whistled again when I sent it. "Well, look at that," she said. "They've saved us a filing fee. We'll counterclaim and ask for an emergency hearing." Judges love when someone tries to turn HOA covenants into a landlord-tenant eviction. This is like bringing a fork to a soup party. "What's a soup party?" I asked. "A party where everyone spills," she said. "Collect everything. We'll go in front of a judge tomorrow. And tell your neighbors, anyone else who's been served, tell them to call me. We'll consolidate." Before the day ended, 3 more envelopes arrived on the block. Mr. Delaney got one. So did Inez. So did Brooks. The association was making it a numbers game. If they could scare just a fraction of people into paying, they'd cover their costs. If they could bully the rest with pending lawsuits, they'd create pressure. This is a tactic as old as paper. Make the process the punishment. By dinner time, I was tired in the marrow. That's when Faith texted, "They came to my door while I was feeding the kids. Said they were starting my eviction. They told me to pick Friday for my move out. I closed the door and cried for 15 minutes. I'm trying not to be scared. I walked over with a pie. Peach from a tin I bought because I make promises I can't keep. And we sat on her steps and talked in the low tones you use so toddlers don't think the world is ending. I told her everything we were doing. I told her what the law requires for an eviction and how none of that applied here, and how we were going to put a stop to it. I told her the county recorder is not a king. I told her she didn't have to schedule anything, not because I said so, but because paper said so. Then we made a plan that would have seemed silly 3 days ago and now felt like survival. We'd put signs on our doors saying, "No trespassing, no soliciting, filming in progress." We'd keep a log of every contact. We'd call each other before answering the door if something looked strange. And tomorrow morning, we'd all show up at the courthouse in clothes decent enough to make a judge think we respect rooms with flags. That night I lay in bed and listened to the house. The house did what houses do when you ask them a question. They creaked like old bones, then settled, then said nothing. I thought about all the ways this could go wrong. I thought about the word eviction and how it can make anyone's breath go shallow. I thought about people who've never been in court and how these letters would land like a fist on their front porch. And then I remembered something small and sharp. When you buy a house in this country, the paper you sign isn't just ink and closing costs. It's a promise that someone can't take your place there without a judge agreeing they have a right. It's a community promise, an imperfect one, fragile and sometimes misused, but real. The paper is weak until you hold it up. You can't leave it in a box. You have to wield it like a lantern. In the morning, Maya met us in front of the courthouse with a stack of documents clipped so neatly it looked surgical. We took the elevator to the 3rd floor where the clerk's office hums with a white noise calm. Maya filed our answers and counterclaims and request for emergency relief. The clerk, a woman with a voice like a lullaby and eyes that miss nothing, took each paper like a nurse takes a pulse, then stamped it with the time. While we waited for a judge to become available, I leaned against a window and watched the square below. A man with a sandwich, a kid doing cartwheels, things that remind you life is mostly ordinary until someone decides to make it weird. Faith stood next to me and asked softly, "Do you think we're going to win?" "Yes," I said, because sometimes the only thing you can afford is certainty. And also, if we don't win today, we will win tomorrow. And if we don't win tomorrow, we will win the day after. Because we are right and they are foolish. The universe is slow but not cruel. She laughed a little through her nose. I keep thinking about the line that said we had to immediately join or face consequences. What if our consequence is that we immediately refuse, I said. And their consequence is that they immediately learn what the inside of a courtroom looks like. Right then, a bailiff opened the door to a small hearing room and said our case name in a tone I want to bottle like cologne. We walked in. On the other side of the table sat Marla and Clive, and a man I suppose was their counsel, a polite guy with a tie that tried its best. Marla made direct eye contact with me and nodded once in a way that could be read as respect or warning. I decided to read it as, "You are a person. I am a person. Let's behave as such." The judge took the bench and looked down at us not like ants, but like adults he expected to act like adults. He set a tone that made me grateful. Then he said, "I've read the filings. I have questions." He started with the association's lawyer. "Explain to me in simple terms how you think you can apply your covenants to properties whose deeds do not reference those covenants, without the owner's consent." Counsel launched into a speech about community character and compatibility standards and exhibit maps. The judge held up a hand. "That's marketing. I need law." The attorney pivoted to the supplemental declaration and the majority approval. The judge asked, "Majority of whom? Your existing membership?" "Yes," the lawyer said. "That's not how annexation works," the judge said, not unkindly. "You can't vote your neighbor into a contract. If you could, we would all be voting our debt onto our least favorite relative." A few chuckles around the room. The judge turned to Maya. "Counsel for the defendants?" Maya was crisp and bright without being showy. She laid out the statute that requires consent for annexation. She cited cases where courts had smacked down HOAs that tried similar stunts. She asked for a temporary restraining order barring the association from enforcing any covenants against properties whose deeds don't include them, and from using the word eviction in any communication. She asked for them to remove any liens they'd recorded or threatened, and to cease all collection efforts. She asked that they be ordered to send corrective letters to everyone they'd contacted. She also asked that the association preserve and produce all documents and names of anyone they'd paid to collect cash. Marla's jaw tightened for the first time. The judge looked at their counsel. Why should I not grant this? There are moments in life when you can feel the hinge. This was one. The attorney looked at his clients, then back at the judge and said, "Your Honor, we believe we are within our rights to maintain community standards." The judge nodded slowly. "And I believe you need to reacquaint yourselves with consent and due process. Temporary restraining order granted." He signed a paper. "No enforcement, no threats of eviction, no collection. If I see a single notice with the word eviction from your side, I will consider sanctions." He set a date for a longer hearing. "In the meantime, counsel for the association, I suggest you read your own bylaws and the statutes that govern you. And I strongly suggest you advise your clients that trespassing is still a crime." We filed out with the quiet reserved for corridors that smell like toner and relief. Outside, I exhaled so hard Brooks thought I dropped something. "Okay," Maya said. "We're safe for now. That's the law doing what it's supposed to do. Now we go on offense." And that's where the other plot lines began to unfurl. Because while all this courtroom theater played out, something else in our neighborhood was fermenting, and it would turn out to be the yeast that made the whole story rise. The association hadn't come from nowhere. It had grown from the ambitions of a developer who wanted a foothold in our quiet grid of houses. It had borrowed the clothes of authority, yes, but it had also borrowed money and promises and perhaps a few signatures that didn't quite match their owner's hands. The next afternoon, a courier delivered another stack of papers, this time not from the association, but from the city clerk in response to a public records request Inez filed on a whim while angry. The records hinted at a meeting where the association had lobbied to assume management of our block and two others, citing rising disorder and lack of uniform standards. The emails included a name we hadn't seen before, Elder, someone at a firm that specialized in creating micro-districts. There was also a reference to a pilot program, where a city staffer would look the other way while a private group tried to self-regulate a block. And there were notes about campaign contributions. "I knew there was a smell," Inez said, fanning herself with the printouts. Maya read through them and said, "If any of this is as bad as it looks, then our little civil matter just grew a few heads." She smiled in a way that meant she had more work to do, and she loved that about her days. "I'll call the state and the city attorney, and if someone encouraged a private entity to pretend it had police powers, someone else is going to be very interested in that." In the middle of all this, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo, a stack of cash on a table, next to a sticky note that said, "Mailbox Hall." Underneath, "You don't know me. I'm one of the kids they paid to do patrols. They're making us bring envelopes to them. They said not to get receipts. I feel weird about it. What should I do?" The night before our stunt, I told the block we'd hold a move-out inspection at the HOA's imaginary clubhouse, donuts supplied. We were done being spooked by letters that yelled eviction. Morning came with yellow tape around the corner kiosk and a city truck unbolting the illegal mailbox. The worker leaned over and said, "No permit, plus complaints." I snapped a photo and texted Maya. "Renovations complete." We set a folding table where the box had been, tablecloth, coffee, 7 plates, a hand-lettered sign. "Move out scheduling, clubhouse check-in." Cars slowed. Theo, the kid they'd paid to do patrols, circled wide-eyed. "They're gonna be mad," he said. I told him civilization runs on paper and pastries. At 9, Clive arrived with sunglasses and a phone, followed by Marla, Breck, and a consultant. I chirped, "Inspection time. Kitchen or clubhouse first?" Marla asked us to move from common property. I tapped the city easement and the judge's order. Maya slid extra copies to Breck. Clive huffed about standards. Inez told them to stop sending kids for cash like pirates. The consultant tried to reset, blaming a pilot program. Brooks said they'd used eviction in shouty font. Marla softened. "Enforcement suspended." I said suspension isn't undue. Maya ended it. "No contact except through counsel. Stop saying the E word." They left like a tide reversing. That afternoon, the city said there was no pilot, no private self-regulation, and gave a hotline for coerced dues. An economic crimes detective called. 3 neighbors admitted they'd paid under pressure. We prepped for the injunction. A notary's journal showed no entry for their declaration. The stamp looked copied. Their lawyer dropped the unlawful occupation claim. The consultant offered to reimagine relations with gateway signage. Mediation day, us, the city, the detective, the consultant, Marla, and Breck. The city attorney laid down the law. You can't vote strangers into covenants. Maya demanded rescission. refunds with interest, apology letters, fee reimbursement, and a list of paid patrols. After a long inhale, they agreed. What followed was mop and bucket justice, a recorded rescission, checks mailed, apologies in embossed envelopes, a promise to retire the E-word. The notary board fined the staffer who misused the seal. Marla lost the presidency and wrote, "Consent is the premise. I am sorry." Breck resigned. Theo got a mowing route. Faith slept. Mr. Delaney built a cedar birdhouse for my elm. We closed the loop with a bannered "Move In Forever" table. Months later, a pamphlet invited us to their clubhouse, within their borders. On my porch stands a flamingo, a reminder that whimsy belongs to owners and consent is the gate. If a letter lands on your door, breathe, gather neighbors, speak paper to paper, and bring donuts together today. Friends, thank you. See you soon.